Most of us do about the same thing every day. We wake up, make some coffee, water the plants, walk the dog, read, write, work. We eat, exercise, scroll social media, watch Netflix, and go to bed. And then we repeat. And I think when life gets repetitive like this, it can be hard to find meaning in it. Life gets boring. Not boring by some sort of social standard, but boring to you. You become disengaged and dispassionate about your own life. As a result, we start to feel unsatisfied. We search for a sense of purpose in other people's lives instead of our own. The days get more and more repetitive, more boring, devoid of any sense of meaning. It's a sort of self-perpetuating cycle. When we allow our lives to get boring and lose our sense of purpose, we leave the story of our life up to fate. And fate is a terrible writer. Earlier this year, I read a book about this. Don Miller says that we should think of our life as a story, like a movie or a novel. If our life is a story, then it's our job to figure out what that story is about. But before we can do that, we have to understand what sort of character we're playing. Every story has 4 primary types of characters. There's the victim, the villain, the hero, and the guide. We play all of these characters at different points in our lives. Sometimes we play the victim. We feel stuck, like there's no way out of whatever situation we're in. We feel like something in our environment has to change before we can finally live the life that we want. Other times, we play the villain. Villains are often carrying a pain through life that they haven't been able to deal with. They make others feel small because they view them as less important than themselves, and often lash out against those around them. We become the hero character when we're willing to overcome obstacles to get what we want out of life. As a result, the hero often goes on big transformational adventures. Finally, we play the guide. This is the character that helps and teaches the hero. We play this character when we help others by passing on our understanding of the world. The character we decide to play determines the quality of the story that we get to write for ourselves. The hero character is the one we all root for in a movie, and it's also the character that experiences the biggest transformation from beginning to end. The biggest hallmark of a hero character is that they know what they want. If you're watching a movie, you should be able to know exactly what the main character wants at any point in time. If you don't, then you'll lose interest in the movie. If the main character doesn't want anything, then the story has nowhere to go. I think the same is true for our lives. If you don't know what you want, then you'll lose interest in it. Life feels boring because you haven't outlined a clear ambition. Part of finding meaning in our lives is accepting the fact that we have the ability to pursue our ambitions. This sounds simple, but it isn't always. We grow up in environments that tell us what role we're supposed to play in society. We go to school, we do homework, we go to soccer practice, we see our friends. And every year, there's a clear mark of forward progress. Even into adulthood, these pre-written cultural scripts continue. They're just less rigid. We get a job, go for promotions, get married, buy a house. The list goes on. And then one day the scripts run out and we have to decide what we want on our own. This can be challenging. Lots of people, including myself, find it hard to figure out what they want. I think there are 3 main reasons for this. Many of us grow up thinking that resources are scarce. Later in life, this can make us feel that by wanting something, we're taking it away from someone else. But ambition is not a zero-sum game. If you have an interesting life, you're not taking away someone else's ability to do the same. There's not like a finite amount of interesting in the world. Some of us are raised in really strict environments. Then we grow up and realize that some of those limitations that were set on us aren't really for us anymore. This leaves us confused and unsure about where to go next after living within such strict boundaries for so long. We have to understand that those old boundaries are gone. Trying new things helps us understand where the new ones are. Lots of us are paralyzed by choice. The world is massive and full of possibility, so it can be hard to decide what the next best thing to do is. This is probably the one that I struggle with the most. When I was getting my pilot's license, I learned how to file a flight plan. These are used so pilots can communicate with the tower and get some help finding their destination. When you file a flight plan, you have to tell them where you're headed. Where do you want to go is the main question that needs answering. But here's the thing. You're allowed to cancel that plan at any point along your flight. You literally just hop on the radio and say never mind. I think ambitions work kind of the same way. You can't be in the sky without a place to go, but you can always change course if you realize that where you're going doesn't suit you anymore. I try to remind myself this anytime I'm a little bit nervous about committing to a new big ambition. You can always just cancel. The main thing is to get off the ground. You never go anywhere if you don't take off. Basically, just do something until you can do something else. Then do that thing. So that's it. To not have a boring life, we just have to want stuff? Well, yeah, kinda. But also, no. That probably leaves you with more questions than answers. Like, what kind of stuff should I want? And how do I figure out specific things to do? Well, here's a handful of things that we can use to prompt ourselves when we're feeling stuck. For a long time, I thought that creativity was some mystical ability that I did not possess. Only people with cool hats and lots of life experience had it. Then I found out that that's not what creativity is. Creativity is just the process you go through to put something into the world that wasn't there before. It's just making something. Personally, I like to build stuff. This cutting board was an exercise in creativity. So was this table. And this painting. Now, anytime I see any of these things or anything else I've been a part of creating, I feel a really deep sense of satisfaction. It's really hard to be bored with your life when you spend your time literally building a world with a little more you in it. I have a theory that anytime someone does something interesting, it always starts with curiosity. These are the what if questions. You see something that looks interesting and then you start to wonder. Following these questions to their inevitable answer often brings us into new and exciting adventures and experiences. A classic point in the hero's journey is the refusal of the call. This is where the hero knows what they're supposed to do, but they're hesitant. They need a push. And this push is called an inciting incident. I try to practice these through something I've come to call forced adventures. This is where you think of something adventurous that you could do in like a day or maybe even a few hours that'll push you a little bit outside of your comfort zone. Doing this starts to build the habit of pushing yourself into more meaningful and exciting stories so that when opportunities come towards us in normal everyday life, we don't refuse them. A big part of living a meaningful life is understanding that it's not all about us. One of the most gratifying and fulfilling parts of life is sharing experiences with other people. A while back, I had one of those what if questions surface in my mind. I was following a bunch of endurance athletes on social media, and I thought, I wonder if I could run a marathon. Rather than doing it by myself, I decided to text a friend and see if he was crazy enough to do it with me. And he said yeah. It wasn't a big deal or even a real race, and neither of us trained for it. We basically just got dropped off marathon distance away from home and ran back. And it was kind of just to see if we could do it. I don't think that this experience would be nearly as meaningful to me if I didn't share it with a good friend. Doing hard things with people you care about builds really rich relationships. Life comes with challenges and hardships, and often these are the most influential parts of our lives. I want to be clear here, this is not to romanticize suffering, but it's important to understand that obstacles are inevitable. Every hero's journey has trials. Having the ability to reflect on these challenges and understand how they enrich our lives is part of living with purpose. Another side of this is being optimistic about change. Change can be scary, but we should try to embrace it. Everything changes, but the unique gift about people is that we're conscious and alive, so we get to choose what we get changed into, depending on what sort of philosophical ideas you subscribe to, I guess. But everything else just gets changed by its environment. I think that we should take advantage of this ability to write our story in a more compelling direction. Changing your physical environment can help spark excitement back into your life. If I ever feel stuck, it's often a change in scenery that gets me out of it. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. New places give us new thoughts and new experiences. And it doesn't have to be a massive change in environment. Just go for a walk down a path you haven't been on, or buy a plane ticket, up to you. A while back, Journey took me to this really cool used bookstore. It was filled with shelves of amazing stories. One of the books she found was an old guide on how to make paper movie machines. A lot of them look like carousels, but instead of weird horses, they're made of moments. This got me thinking about how life is like a carousel of moments. It's a series of individual moments that, when sped up, look like a movie of our life. Life is made up of moments that turn into days, which turn into weeks, which turn into months, then years, then the sum total of our life. How we decide to spend each moment is how we spend our life. Life doesn't happen later. It's not some future event that we're preparing for. It's happening now, in this moment. I want to clarify that not every day is this big, dramatic story. This isn't about creating some sort of highlight reel for your life. Real life doesn't look like an Instagram feed. The story of real life has boring moments, but that doesn't matter. It's about how we feel about those boring moments. If you can wake up, make coffee, water the plants, read, write, work, eat, exercise, walk the dog, go to bed, repeat, and feel a deep sense of purpose while you do it, then you're on the right track. The subplots of our days create the overarching stories of our lives. We can infuse each day with a deep sense of purpose. All we have to do is have a clear ambition and some practical methods to help us get there. I don't have kids, but hopefully someday I will. And I often think about what I'll tell them when they start asking the big questions. Questions like, why are we here and what does it all mean? I don't know. And honestly, I don't really care. It's none of my business. It's not my job to interrogate life and figure out what it means or what it wants. I think it's actually the opposite. Life is interrogating us. It seems to be asking, what is the meaning of you and why are you here? And it seems to be rooting for us. Life is on the edge of its seat, waiting to see what we're going to do with our short time here. We all get our own carousels, and it's our job to fill its contents with meaning.